Some people, when they learn a new language, they place a heavy emphasis on getting the pronunciation down. So they want to sound like a near native speaker. And I want to give you a little bit of a different perspective on this because sometimes accents can be helpful in telling the other person that you're currently trying to learn their language. To give you a personal example, my Chinese is not very good, but my pronunciation is okay, 我口音还可以吧. And so I do sound fairly close to the people from my area in China. So when I travel around China, most Chinese people can tell that I'm from Dongbei. I don't know a lot of words in Chinese because I only spent 1 year in China from 0 to 1. And so I wasn't even able to speak by the time I left China. And so most of the words that I know are things that I picked up from my parents, like 操你妈,我打死你,你给我闭嘴, like, come downstairs and have dinner. So I struggle a lot when I'm in China because when people speak to me, I don't know about maybe 25% of the words. And so oftentimes what I do is just nod and ha 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 ha. And like 80% of the time it works, but sometimes it doesn't work. One time I was at an airport in Beijing and my flight got canceled. And so I had to go to the counter and rebook my ticket. But this was a domestic flight on China Eastern Airlines. And so no one at the counter spoke English. And so I had to speak Chinese. And I was like, okay, 对不起,我的飞机到沈阳取消了. Sorry, my flight to Shenyang got cancelled. And then she asks me, 你需要改签吗? And I was like, she asks me if I need to 改签, and I don't know what 改签 means. Sometimes in Chinese, you can break down the words into their individual characters and try and guess what it means. And so I thought, well, 改签, 改 means to change, but then I can't really tell if she's saying 改签 or 改钱, because 签 and 钱 are two very different things. One means signature and the other means money. And so I'm kind of worried that she's either asking me to rebook or get a refund. And I definitely cannot get a refund because I actually need to go to Shenyang and see my grandparents. So I was like, 改签是什么意思? What does it mean to 改签? And she was like, 你不懂改签是什么意思? She's like, you don't know what it means to 改签? And I'm like, no, 我不知道. When you think about this in English, her reaction sort of makes sense, right? Like imagine if someone came up to you and was like, oh, my flight to Toronto got canceled. And you're like, oh, sir, do you need to rebook? And the guy asks you, what does it mean to rebook? You would be like, what? You don't know what rebook means? And so this lady probably thought I was a fucking idiot. You know what is frustrating about all of this is that if I went up to this woman and I said, 对不起,我飞机没了, she would be like, wow, 你的中文太好了. Your Chinese is very good. But because I'm in this weird twilight zone where my Chinese is not good enough to be fluent, but not terrible enough to sound like I'm learning, I get the short end of the stick. And not only do I not get praised, I also get berated by my fellow Chinese people for the way in which I speak Chinese. Like this one time I was in Shanghai and this Didi driver was like, 你从哪里来的? Where are you from? And I said, Canada. I'm from Canada. And he's like, 因为我在想哈,你讲的中文有点难听. And I was like, oh my God. 我操你妈, He says to me, the reason why he asks where I'm from is because the way I speak Chinese sounds a bit nasty. And I'm like, oh my gosh, do you even know how hard it is to pick up a language when you don't live there and when your parents are juggling multiple jobs so they don't have time to actually teach you? Taking all that into consideration, my Chinese is not bad. But the problem is I didn't know how to say any of that in Chinese because my Chinese is not good. 太残忍了.